everyone, and welcome to Sustainepreneur Podcast, episode 13, where we continue to talk about the steps towards sustainability only from the sustainepreneur perspective. Say that 10 times fast. We're going to finish this discussion off right here, so stick around. Welcome back to another episode of Sustainepreneur Podcast, where we are bridging the gap between business and sustainability. We want to educate and motivate sustainepreneurs by discussing important topics, debating different perspectives, and by showcasing those of you out there who are doing it right now. I'm your host, Nate Hansen, and we're glad to have you with us. So let's get started. In our last episode, Steps Towards Sustainability, we talked about how to become more sustainable in your personal life. But we ended up finishing up with why you can get away with doing a whole lot less because you're a sustainepreneur. And that has to do with where your focus lies. Is it in changing your own personal world or in changing the way the system works? Because most people don't have time for both. And hey, if you do, then I salute you because you are superhuman. But for the rest of us, we still only have 24 hours in a day. And the reality of the 10 steps towards sustainability is that most people in our modern day society are used to having the luxuries of unsustainable but efficient practices. So it can be very time consuming to make these changes, and there's a lot to learn. So most people are going to try 2 or 3 steps in this process before feeling like they're wasting valuable time and end up going and buying a more sustainable product. Hopefully that's what they do. And that's okay. Sustainable development takes time. In fact, the very definition of development says process right in it. And processes can be gradual. But sustainepreneurs want to speed things up a lot. And that's one of the reasons that we do what we do. We find ways to change society and make money at it. And our time is more valuable than others. Maybe that's a little smug, but for every hour we spend sorting through the dust in our dustpan, looking for things to recycle, we could be making things happen on a global scale. So, why can we get away with so much more being sustainepreneurs? Because we're looking for systemic changes. That's why. We're trying to change it so people don't even have to think about doing the sustainable thing. It's already being done for them in the process. That has far more impact than anything else you could do on your 50 by 150 foot lot. Now, the first 4 steps still apply. There's no getting around that. Working on yourself, volunteering your time, donating your money, and teaching and learning are unavoidable. If for nothing else, it's so that we can maintain some mental clarity. Because all of those things have resounding effects on our psyche and overall quality of life. But the rest of them, as sustainepreneurs, we can be a little bit more lax on them because, we're moving toward a greater cause. Now, if you're like me, you probably can't just be completely unsustainable. I'd feel way too dirty every day to be able to sleep at night or even look myself in the mirror. But I do make compromises on what seems to be a daily basis so that I can have more time to dedicate to my organization and its cause. But for us sustainepreneurs, that list, all the way from 1 to 10, becomes a veritable goldmine of possible business prospects. The more dedicated we are to sustainable business, the more we think about incorporating the earliest parts of this list into our business models. So, why keep paper cups for the water cooler when you can just have people bring their own cups? That's making your business more sustainable by incorporating step 6. If you want to help people work on themselves and start a yoga class, a church, or a meditation retreat, you just made a business out of step 1. Someone out there could make a living by coaching people to be minimalists. That's making a living by teaching people on how to live with less. Step 5. And a little bit of step 4. A lot of step 4. So really, the latter half of step 10 of sustainable business, like I said before, it's kind of a two-sided step, should kind of be like its own step all in itself, because it's the only one of the core steps that reaches beyond our own personal lives to influence others. So it's really, the whole list is kind of like a 3-phase list, where the third phase can change the way in which the core steps are perceived, depending on your perspective, whether you're a consumer or a sustainepreneur. Now, to kind of go a little bit off topic, I wanted to mention this in the last episode, but I ran out of time. But did you notice that recycling was not in the list? Let me tell you why. It's because I believe it's been so overvalued as a solution and should be considered something completely different. It should be considered resource remediation or even deviation. Because, as we've said before, you can't recycle your way to sustainability. Too many people think that recycling the package that a plastic toy came in from a kid's meal completely cancels out the fact that it's an entirely meaningless toy that will get played with for an hour or two until finally ending up under the bottom of a toy box or broken underneath the car seat. Recycling does not make it okay for us to buy tons of new stuff off the factory shelves. If my recycling bin is the same size as my old garbage can and gets filled up just as fast, then I really still haven't done anything in the fight for sustainability. So, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. There's a lot to say on this topic. So the first part of the episode was called Steps Towards Sustainability. If you haven't listened to it yet, go check it out. I was going to call them part 1 and part 2, but to me, they had 2 very different topics, so I kind of wanted them to stand on their own. So I hope you got a lot out of this one because I gave it my heart and soul, which, come to think of it, I'm giving my step 1, heart and soul, to give you step 4, which is teach, on how to do step 10, sustainable business. That's fun to think about. That concludes our episode for today. As always, thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to like, share, rate, and subscribe. And we'll see you all again next time on Sustainepreneur Podcast, where we are bridging the gap between business and sustainability.